All right, good morning. I'm trying this video out. I hope it works. I hope everything goes smoothly for you guys. I'll upload it. I'm not going to make it long. Sum and difference formulas. I'm just going to review this. They're all on page 379 in your textbook. I wrote them out. Sum, sine, cosine, tangent, sum and difference. If you notice, for sine, you got plus and plus, so they line up. Minus and minus lines up. Cosines are actually the opposites. Okay, if you're adding, you subtract here. If you're subtracting, you add here. And tangent, you'll notice that the sign, the plus, matches the numerator, and then the denominator is opposite. So when you subtract, you've got subtraction in the numerator, addition in the denominator. Okay, those are the formulas that are on page 379. What I'm going to do is get into a few basic examples. I'm not going to make this long. I want to make sure it comes through okay. And I'm going to ask you guys to get me some feedback on this after I post it. Okay, the first thing we're going to look at is find the exact values of 7 pi over 12 for cosine, sine, and tangent. Okay? Now, first thing we have to figure out, 7 pi over 12, we have to be able to break up. We're either going to do addition or subtraction. Personally, I've always told you guys, I prefer addition. So if I break this up to 3 pi over 12 plus 4 pi over 12, they both reduce. Pi over 3 plus pi over 4. And those are simple reference angles, so we should be able to put this information in there no problem. So we'll start with sine, and that's going to be pi over 3 plus pi over 4. All right, and when you go through and do that, I'm just going to do down the page here. I'm limited. You see the thing on the left is actually a vase my phone is resting on. I can't get all the way over here on the page, so I'm just going to work straight down here. Sine, you get the sine pi over 3 cosine pi over 4 plus sine pi over 4 cosine pi over 3. And you just plug those values in, put the equal sign here. So you have sine radical 3 over 2, the sine of pi over 3, times radical 2 over 2 plus sine of pi over 4 is radical 2 over 2 times the cosine of pi over 3 is 1/2. Multiply those together, I get radical 6 over 4 plus radical 2 over 4. Turn them into one fraction, radical 6 plus radical 2 over 4. And leave it like that. That's exact. That is your exact value. So you don't want to do anything else with that. Okay? Just leave it right there. There's your answer. I'm going to move on now to cosine. Pi over 3 plus pi over 4. And using our formulas, we will get cosine pi over 3 times cosine pi over 4 minus sine pi over 3 times the sine of pi over 4. All right, plug those values in. Radical 3 over 2 times radical 2 over 2 minus radical 2 over 2. Oh, check that. Look, the wrong spot. I'm just going to erase here. Sorry for the mistake. Let's go back here. 1/2 times radical 2 over 2 minus radical 3 over 2 times radical 2 over 2. Okay, clean that up. Radical 2 over 4 minus radical 6 over 4. And there it is, radical 2 minus radical 6 over 4. There's your answer. Now tangent gets a little more interesting. Tangent pi over 3 plus pi over 4. And what you're going to get is the tangent of pi over 3 plus the tangent of pi over 4 over 1 minus the product of those two, pi over 3 tangent pi over 4. And again, we plug those values in. I have radical 3 plus 1 over 1 minus radical 3 times 1. And you end up with radical 3 plus 1 over 1 minus radical 3. Now, I've told you before that you could leave it like that, but just for the sake of argument here, I'm going to go through and rationalize the denominator. And when we do that, we multiply by the conjugate, 1 plus radical 3. Okay? And in the denominator, we will get 1 times 1, radical 3 times radical 3. That's your denominator. The numerator, we FOIL. We get radical 3 plus 3 plus 1 plus radical 3. So we end up with 4 plus 2 radical 3 over negative 2. Simplify at the last step, negative 2 minus radical 3. And there's your answer. So that's how you apply the formulas. Sometimes you might see it along the lines of a question that looks like this. Evaluate sine 52 cosine 22 minus cosine 52 sine 22. Now, the first thing you're going to look at is that you have a difference formula. Okay, sine cosine means you're talking about sine. Okay, so this actually makes it easy. It becomes the sine of 52 minus 22, and that's going to be the sine of 30, which is 1/2. Now, another giveaway here, if you don't know whether to use the sum or difference, 52 minus 22 is 30, 52 plus 22 is 74. We're not going to use 74. I'm not that mean. Maybe the guy down the hall, he might do something like that, but I'm not going to do that. So there you go. There's a couple. I got two more here I'm going to throw at you, just to make this a nice little lesson. A couple other options here. You may see different directions along the lines that say simplify. Okay, and then you'll see something like tangent theta plus 3 pi. Okay, now they want you to simplify that. When you see simplify, you know you're not going to be getting a specific answer. You can tell because you have theta. Theta is not a specific angle. They're just putting it in there. So when you apply the tangent formula, you get tangent theta plus tangent 3 pi over 1 minus tangent theta tangent 3 pi. Okay? You keep going. Tangent theta is just tangent theta. Tangent of 3 pi is the same as tangent of pi, which is 0. And then here you're going to get 1 minus 0 when you multiply these together. And that simplifies to just tangent theta. There you go. Nice and easy. Okay? I'm going to do one more for you. It's going to be a little more involved. We're going to put the directions, solve for x. So we're going to have x as an angle measure, and you're going to have to solve for that. I'll give you a domain, 0 less than or equal to x, which is less than 2 pi. Okay? And the equation is going to be sine x plus pi over 4 plus sine x minus pi over 4. And we're going to set that equal to -1. Okay? Now the first thing we want to do is we want to expand these. Okay? We'll get sine x cosine pi over 4 plus sine pi over 4 cosine x. That's the first one. Plus, and then we'll do the difference formula for sine. Sine x cosine pi over 4 minus sine pi over 4 cosine x, and that equals -1. Oh, get that in there? -1. There it is. Running out of space here. All right, now, as complicated as this looks, it actually breaks down easily. You've got plus sine pi over 4 cosine x minus sine pi over 4 cosine x. So you can cross those out, and then you've got 2 sine x cosine pi over 4 equals -1. And now what we're doing is we're substituting in values that we know and solving the equation. First, I'm going to divide everything by 2. Sine x cosine pi over 4 equals -1 over 2. Okay? And then we know cosine pi over 4 is radical 2 over 2. And that equals -1 over 2. So what I'm going to do is divide by radical 2 over 2, divide by radical 2 over 2, just like you would in any equation. And you end up with sine x equals -1 over radical 2, or negative radical 2 over 2. Now, sine, where's sine negative radical 2 over 2? Well, 5 pi over 4 in the third quadrant, and 7 pi over 4 in the fourth quadrant, because we get two different answers. Okay, I hope this video was helpful. Give me some feedback on it. Let me know. I'm also going to try to put together another Google Meet for maybe Friday if you guys have any questions or concerns, or maybe just want to check in. Okay, hope all is well. Hope you're doing good, and I will catch up with you soon. Thanks a lot.